Hey guys, welcome back to a new episode of Dev Drawer. Today we are going to be talking about object-oriented programming inheritance, abstract classes, interfaces, and traits. In the last video we talked about properties, objects, methods, using the this keyword, constructors, visibility, essentially just creating classes, being able to display them, creating the methods and the properties of those classes, and being able to display them, which is what you see here. So in order to simplify this tutorial, I'm going to remove a lot of the stuff that we did last week, and because whenever we start getting into abstract classes and interfaces, if you're a beginner, it could be very, very confusing, and the more you do it, the better you'll get at it. So what I'm going to do is do like a quick brief overview of each one of them. I'm not going to go into a lot of detail about it because they're kind of advanced for this type of video, but I just want to get through them to kind of show you what you can do with it. So first thing I want to do is I'm going to come over here and I'm going to delete everything that we currently have in here because we're not going to be using our employees class inside of this. I've already created a new class called class.person.php, and this is where our testing for this tutorial is going to go. So I'm going to take this and make it point to the correct place, and then as you can see in the browser, we refresh it, there's nothing there. So we're kind of starting from a fresh slate here, instead of trying to take what we did last time where I was showing you the functionality of object-oriented programming and making it work, because like I said, it can get very confusing very quickly if you've never done it before. So essentially, let's talk about the concept of inheritance. Inheritance is whenever a class is derived from another class. The parent class would be the class that the child class is inherited from. It can extend the parent class and use all of the methods, all of the properties, all of the objects that are inside of that class and use it as its own. So if you want to think about it, like for an example, you can inherit from pets, and one of your classes would be a dog, one of your classes would be a cat. So you have your parent class, which is pets, and then you have your child class 1, which is dog, child class 2, which is cat. And the dog can have its own properties, so long tail, short tail, color, breed, stuff like that. And then the cat could have its own version of those as well. And then they will use the pets category, pets class as the parent, where they inherit all of their information from. So I'm just going to go ahead and create a simple class right now, so you can follow along with me, and if you watch the previous video, you'll kind of know what I'm doing as I'm doing it, but I'll kind of walk you through it as I'm doing it. So I'm just going to create the class person, and then I'm going to set up a public name, public age, and then I'm going to set up a public function, which is the construct function, which is going to take all of those, and whenever you go to create this class on the index.php, you can pass variables to it. So this is going to construct our entire class. Okay, so public function struct, and then we're going to pass the name and age to that method or function. And then we can use this keyword, name equals name, and then this keyword, age equals age. So inside of this class, we currently don't have any methods that we're using on the public, so I'm going to create another public function, and I'm going to call it hi. It's going to have some text in it. So we're going to echo out hi, my name is, and then we're going to pass this name, period, I am, and then we're going to pass this age, years old. And this is just going to be basically our echo string. So now that we have, this is our parent class, we're going to create a child class on the same page. Just like I said, I'm going to go through it very simple. What you would normally do in this is, like for our previous example, we had class employees, and then we would create another class dot employee or class dot person dot PHP and then call it from there. But for this specific instance, we're going to just we're going to pass over this class into another class and extend it out in the same page. Whenever you are doing this in the real world, you'd want to separate them so it's easy for you to keep control over. But let's go ahead and create a class developer, and this is going to extends class person. And there. Okay, so wait, I just realized y'all can't see my browser window. There we go. Okay. Well, I mean, there's nothing there anyway, but okay. So whenever we extend our developer, we extend our person's class into the child class developer. We want to create a function because the construct that we've created is inherited, as well as the high that we've created is inherited. So I'm going to create another public function, and I'm going to say this one's going to be hello. And inside of this is just going to be echo hello. And that's it. Let's add a break tag to the end of it just so that we can have a break in between it. Okay, and then on our index.php page, after we include that class, we're going to say developer equals new developer, and then we're going to pass the variables that it's looking for inside of this construct method. So we're going to pass the name. We can say John Doe, and then we can have his, what was it, age. We can have his age of 34. Now, we have the developer being passed over to this class, and it's grabbing the construct information, the variables that we need, and it's passing it over. So now we should be able to call hi and hello, and you can see that it passes over the information that it needs. So let's come over here and say that we want to do developer, and then I think we called it hello, and then let's do the other one where it's developer hi. Okay, so now if we go back to our web page and we refresh, we now have it where it says hello, which is this one, and then we have it say, hi, my name is John Doe, I'm 34 years old. So it's basically taking this information and passing it on to our child class without breaking it. So let's go into starting taking what we have and adding some protected and private variables to it. So we have public name, public age. Let's go ahead and create a private, and I'm just going to simplify this, and it's going to be private, and then I'm just going to call the variable private, and it's going to equal to private. And this isn't going to work. I'm essentially going to show you what not to do. But let's just go ahead and run through it. So this one is going to be a protected, and then this is going to be protected equals protected. And let's go ahead and also create a private function and a protected function. So protected function, protected method, and we're just again naming it very simply. So we're just going to echo out this protected. Okay, and let me go ahead and do the same thing for our private function. So this is going to be private function, and then we're just going to call it private method. and this is going to echo out this private. So like I said, these functions are not going to work. So if we went to call them, see, if we go over here and we try to call developer protected. So if we try to call this function, it's going to error out on us. So it says that it can't provide, it can't use the undefined method protected, which is what I was thinking it would do. And then it would be also be the same thing if we tried to change a variable inside of it. So we're just going to like if we tried to list out this variable, I think we called it private. So if we, instead of doing this, if we do private and we just try to echo out that that variable, and then we go back over here to refresh our page, still the same thing. So the private and the protected functionality of these classes still they still work. It's just that you have to call them the same way you would call a public or a private method inside of another class. So we're not going to go into too much detail on that. But what we're, I'm just kind of showing you what it would look like. So I'm gonna go ahead and go back in and remove all of these. But we went over private and protected previously, the visibility. So I'm not going to go into it again, but you would do the same thing here if you wanted to have a public function that shows a private method or shows a private variable. You would just create it the same way that we did over here, where we have, I think the get state was a protected, see, allowed states was private and the state was private. So this right here, because we were calling it inside of a public and a private function, it allowed it to work. So again, if you want to review more about that, you would have to go back and look at the previous tutorial. One of the good things about having a child class that you can override variables from a parent class. So let's say, for example, we have our name and age, we have hi, just like we did, and then we can come up here and say that we wanted to add another variable to it. So let's do public department. So department currently doesn't exist inside of person. So what we're going to do is change this. We're going to copy this construct, and as long as you name it the same as what it is inside of your parent function, you can change it up. So we're going to pass department to this, and then we're going to come over here and say this department equals department. So even though this variable doesn't exist inside of this class, we can still add to it by redefining this method that we created inside of this class. Now we can redefine it and say that now it has 3 variables that need to be passed rather than 2. Okay, so let's also come over here, and inside of the hi, we can change this to my department is, and then we're going to do this department. So right now, if we try to run this, it's going to break, because whenever we're declaring it first here, we're not actually passing anything to it. So we come over here and let's just say marketing. Marketing is the department. So now we refresh it, we can say that John Doe is 34 years old, his department is marketing, because now we're able to pass this this class variable into, get rid of this and this so I can see what I'm doing. Even though it's not being used here, we're redefining that construct down here. So that's one of the cool things about using child classes, is that you can override the inherited methods that you created in your original class. You can override them in the child class. So whenever you want to call a parent's method, you can also call it using the parent keyword as well as a scope resolution operator. So let's say, like, inside of this construct, we want to do let's say parent, And then this is the operator that I was telling you about. It's the scope resolution operator. So we're essentially just telling it using shorthand that we're going to be using the parent of this, and we're going to be using the, I'm just going to do the construct, and then we're going to be passing name and age. And then let's get rid of this because we're already telling it what we want it to say here, and then we're just adding the department to it the same way we did previously. So again, if we come back over here and refresh our page, everything's the same. So we're calling it a different way. We're not redefining the construct here, but we are adding to the construct here. If that makes any sense. Like I said, it can be kind of disorienting whenever you're setting all this up, but essentially we're using what was already passed to the parent class, and we're adding to that class inside of our own construct inside of our child class. Whenever you override your parent's method, you cannot use this method name to refer to the parent method, as it's now referred to the method of the child class. So you have to use parent and then the method name, instead of using this like we did here. Instead of using this method name, we use parent method name, because that's the only way you can do it now since you declared it once you overrode it. Because if you use this, it's actually going to, instead of using the parent construct, it's going to use the child construct, because this is technically this, whereas this is technically this. So again, it's kind of confusing, but I think that this should help you understand a little bit how you're pushing it in there. Okay, so now we also have the ability to use final, and final prevents the inheritance in your parent from your parent class. So up here we can do final class person, and now if we save this and we refresh it, what was working no longer works, because we cannot inherit this parent method any longer. So we would have to come in here and do it the same way we were doing it previously, where it's this name, this age, this department, because our class up here has final on it, meaning that this is the only way we want this class to be used. You can't come in here and inherit directly from it. You can come in here and create your own versions of it, but you can't inherit directly from it. And that just basically allows you to prevent method overriding. It allows you to prevent class inheritance. So if you wanted to have something that is like the backbone of your class structure, let's say like a database connection. If you wanted to create a database connection, you would use final on that class. That way that database connection can't be changed anytime it's being called. So I'm going to go ahead and we're going to remove this so that our code works. So I'm going to go back over here and refresh. So essentially that was inheritance. Inheritance is the simpler of what we're fixing to go over. So essentially inheritance means that you share resources between a parent class and a child class, or multiple child classes. You can have a lot of different childs that pull from your parent, but you may not want to necessarily share everything all the time. So you can add that final tag to the class and make it where that it is some things just aren't able to be shared. So it's an extremely useful concept, which allows you to prevent code duplication and manage your bigger projects a lot easier. So the next part we're going to be going over is the abstract and interfaces. And like I told you, if you're a beginner, you may have a hard time learning it. Whenever you get ready to use them, once you're more familiar with them, it'll become a lot easier. But you need to know when to use which one. So abstract, interface, or traits. Okay, so basically abstract classes and methods is a real world example would be that you are a parent and you have a kid. Well, you need to have something done, and you have a list of tasks that you need to be done. Instead of you doing it, you assign that to your kid, and then your kid will take that list and they will do the tasks that you need them to in the order that you need them to. using the list that you provided to them. So that's essentially a very broad overview of abstract classes. It's basically you need to have abstract methods in order to have your children know what they need to do whenever they're overriding it or inheriting it. So whenever you create an abstract class, so I'm gonna change this high to be an abstract class. So whenever you go to create an abstract class, you need to add the keyword abstract to your class, and then you need to create your abstract methods. Your methods in an abstract class do not have a body, which means that they won't look like this. They will look like this. So abstract public function high. And then whenever you're creating an abstract method, you can create it to produce an integer, you can create it to produce a string, or you can let the child decide which one it produces. But for this instance, we're going to produce it as a string. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to comment this out for now. And I'm going to reload our page, which should be broken. There we go. So essentially what this is telling you is that this developer, this abstract person class is using an abstract function, but that function is not being called inside of the developer class. So let's go ahead and create this abstract class inside of the developer, abstract method inside of the developer class. Okay. So let's go down here, and I'm basically going to just copy this over now, and we're going to paste it in here, and I'm going to delete it here so we no longer need it here because it's being abstracted inside of our child function. So we are passing it as a string, so we need to make sure that this function is also being passed as a string. And I don't think we need to change anything here, except we can't echo it out. We are going to be returning it. So now we should be able to refresh the page and see, we see hello. Hold on, let me see in my documents. So we have it returning the variable. Let me close this so I can read it better. Alright, so now I think we need to change it here. So we got developer. That's because we're no longer calling it directly from the person class. We're calling it from the developer class. So we have developer here, and we need to echo it because we're returning that variable, that string. So now we have echo. There we go. Alright, let me go ahead and return this one as well since I'm echoing it out. So this is essentially, we're passing the abstract class, and we're letting this child class, or the abstract method, and we're letting this child class know that we want it to provide something to us back as a string. So the abstraction here is, it's basically just telling us that we are creating a method that we want something to be done with, but we don't necessarily know what we want done with it yet. So we're going to have the child do it for us. So what's cool about this is that we can also create a new class. So let's say we currently have class developer. And I'm going to go ahead and remove the construct out of it because we don't need this anymore, and I'm going to remove this as well because I'm just trying to simplify things so that you can see it. Okay, so now we have let's do a designer class that extends person, and then over here let's get rid of the department, or else it's going to show an error code for us. So this is the new developer, and I think we got rid of the hello. Alright, so let's get rid of this one. And what we can do on this is that we can call that designer class directly, and it uses that same functionality, that same method that we were able to create here. So let's say instead of saying my design is this department, because we're no longer passing it, we're going to say my design or my department is development, and then this one's going to say my department is design. And then over here we are going to change this to the designer, which is going to call the designer class, and then this is going to be Jane Doe, and then we're also going to do designer hi. Okay, so now if we refresh the page, we see that there's two of them here. Let me add a break tag to the end of this so that they are broken up. Now let's refresh it again, and you can see that it now says development because it's calling the development class that is has an abstract method called hi from the person class, and then the same thing with the design. The designer class has an abstract method called hi from the person class. So essentially that is an abstraction. You can create it's just a simple way of telling children what they need to do in a way that is it's easy to understand. I mean, we could create a whole bunch of different abstract functions and then have these classes run those methods and then produce the results that we want that's dependent on the class that we're in. So we can add other functionality, other methods that would produce different results, and then we can change everything up. Like, we don't even have to have it say this at all. We can actually have hi that hits another method that produces a completely different result than what's being done for the designer. So abstract classes, they're important when you strictly need child classes to define a method. In most cases, abstraction is used when the parent is inherited by multiple child classes which have almost the same behaviors. So abstraction is also the basis of interfaces, which we're fixing to get into now. And once you get into it, you'll see that they are very similar. There's a few differences, but we'll get into that starting now. So whenever you're deciding whether you should use an interface or an abstract class, just keep in mind that there's very little differences between them. Basically, the interface, you already kind of have things set up. So whenever you need to let a class implement some methods in it by itself, you use interfaces. Whenever you need to support a child class by adding non-abstract methods, which is a whole bunch of words I just said that you may not understand, but the abstract method being the abstract functions that we just created, you should use abstract classes. Otherwise, interfaces would be the way to go. So choose interfaces over abstraction whenever you can, but it's not always necessarily the best choice. So let's take what we have here, and we're going to get it ready to be an interface. So we have our abstract class person. We're going to change this, and we're going to make this be an interface rather than a class. Oh, need to get rid of this. So instead of a class, we're going to do an interface, and then instead of an abstract method, we're going to do just a regular public method. We also want to do public function construct, and then we're going to pass that name and age again. And then for this, we need to get rid of this. No, we don't. Okay, so we got our public function construct, the name and the age, and then we have our public function hi, which is what we've been passing the entire time. Now, instead of extending person like we were doing because it was its own class, we're actually going to be coming over here and we're going to say implements person. And then let's go ahead and create public name, and then inside of this we're going to let's do public age as well. And then inside of this, we're going to create a construct method again. So public function construct, and then we're going to pass the name and the age again. and we're just going to save those values. So this name equals name, this age equals age. And then I need to not do this. This needs to be a $sign. Okay, so now we have our our construct method, and then we also have our high method that we are passing along. So we have the interface here that's set up to show you that we want this class to implement this construct and this high method. So inside of our class we have the construct and we have the high method. After you implement an interface in a class, all the abstract methods in the interface should be declared in the class. All the abstract methods in the interface have public visibility, and all methods in the class that implements the abstract methods should have public visibility as well. So we already have this. We should essentially be able to save it and run the code the way we did before. Class designer cannot extend. Okay, I got to do this again. So we're going to have this one. It's going to be implements person. And then we don't need to have, yeah, I think that we're good here. Implements person. Alright, so now let's refresh. One abstract method. Where is it being abstracted at? Line 22. Class designer implements person. Let's add these to it. And save. There we go. Alright, so as you can see, this is the longer way to do it, but it can keep your code a little more organized. So let me see if I can get away with removing this construct altogether. Don't think so. Yep. Alright. Because we're forcing it up here. If we weren't forcing it up here, we wouldn't need to force it down here or here. But in order to get us the name and the age that we're passing to it on this side, we need to have those in there. So essentially, whenever you are choosing between an interface and a abstract class, you need to consider, how much code you're going to have to write, where can you call it, where can you place it. One of the cool things about an interface is that you can actually extend an interface. So let's say if we wanted to have another interface up here where it is, I'm trying to look in my notes where we have another one. Let's do interface company extends person. And this will, no, that's not what I want to do. I want to do this. This will take what we're passing inside of this interface and we can add to it. So let's say we want to have another public function. So public function, and we're going to do hello, and I don't want to pass anything to it. Okay, so we have this interface that is extending this interface, but you can only extend one class even if you implement multiple interfaces. So keep that in mind whenever you are whenever you're writing your interfaces in your class, that you can only extend one class even though you can implement multiple interfaces. Let's see. So we got the developer, company, person, developer. So I want to take this company and create the function hello. So we're going to do public function hello, and we're going to return hello. Now if we come back over here, we should be able to do, since we only have it called in the developer, we should be able to do developer hello. And now let's refresh this. And it's got the break tag after that, so let me add a break tag after this so you can see that it is working. Because we created this interface, we created two interfaces, they share between each other. And then inside of the developer, we're implementing person, but because companies also extend in person, we can call functions that are inside of the company as well. So if we change this to, let's say, like hello 2, and hello 2, yeah, it still works. So we're not actually extending that function. So we got the person here that's requiring that. It's requiring this. The company extends the person. I think we should be able to implement company. We should still be able to run both of these even without it being declared. Okay. All right. So that's what I was doing wrong. I didn't implement the company. So I'm implementing company here on this class because the company extends the person. The same way you would use an inheritance in a class, and then a child class and a parent class, we can extend out and implement these the same way that we were previously doing it with the parent-child classes, where this one is now being called, but it's able to pull both of these interface methods as well. Okay, so we just went over the interfaces and we went over the abstract classes, which those, like I said, they're very difficult to explain. You just kind of have to use them and find out which one works best for you. But there's also another option that you can use. It's called traits. And essentially what a trait is, it's a way that you can declare methods that can be used in multiple classes. It reduces your code duplication, but they can't be initialized meaning that you can't create an object from them, but you can have methods and abstract methods, and then those methods can also have any visibility. So essentially PHP code can only have single inheritances. Traits allow you to have multiples and share them through classes. So using this same class structure, I'm going to get rid of this hello. I'm going to get rid of this because I don't really care about that anymore. So now this, I'm just going to refresh our page. Company not found. Company. Where are you at? Company. Oh, I need to change this back as well. So person. Okay. Developer hello. That's because I'm calling it over here. Okay. So now we're back to where we were before we started using the interfaces. Or close. But what I want to show you is how to use a trait. And a trait, you can assign multiple traits. So let's say instead of having this up here as an interface, let's do a trait. So we're going to do a trait person, and then we're going to create a function or a method inside of this. And let's say like eye color. So eye color, and let's echo blue. And let's say we want to create, let's actually change this from person to trait eye, and then let's do trait hair. And we're going to create another public function called hair color, and we're going to echo blonde. Okay, so we've created two traits, We don't need to have this implementing person anymore. Same thing down here because we're not implementing anything. The way that you get a trait into a class is you just tell that you want to use it. So in here we can do use I, comma, hair, and we're going to do the same thing down here just as well. So we created these traits, and the reason why I used eye and hair is because that's what most people think of whenever they think about a person's traits, is their eye color or their hair color. So right now we just have it where it says it pulls a function. You can have this function actually do some logical stuff and have it implement if it's this person they have blue hair or blue eyes, if this person they have green eyes. But for right now I'm just going to echo it out so you can see what it does. So we have this developer class that we are using over here for the developer and the designer. So the way that you would pull a trait is you would do something like this: echo developer. Actually, let me get rid of the echo because I am doing an echo already. So developer, and then we're going to do eye color. So if we go back to our page and refresh it, we need now say that it's blue. So let's do the same thing with the hair color. So we're going to do developer hair color is blue and blonde. Let's say if we wanted to pass a variable to this. So we want to have our developer, he's going to have blue eyes and he's going to have blonde hair. So this won't change, but let's say we want to do the same thing to our designer, and our designer is going to have, let's say, red hair. So red hair and green eyes. Now inside of our functions over here, we would pass that on to be color and then echo color. Then echo, let's just go ahead and use that function or that variable again, and now we should be able to refresh and see that blue, blonde, and then the designer has red and green. So let's also go ahead and say this: my eyes are blue colored, and let's add a break tag to it. And then over here we're going to say my hair is that color with the break tag underneath it. Okay, so now you can see that the space refresh. So my name is John Doe. I'm 34 years old. My department is development. My eyes are blue colored. My hair is blonde colored. My name is Jane Doe. I'm 34 years old. My department is design. My eyes are red colored and my hair is green colored. So we can create these functions these methods and make them do whatever we want to, and then we use the traits inside of our classes, and we don't have to redeclare them. We don't have to pass anything to them. It's going to just use it whenever we go to call it here. It becomes a direct method for the class that we're inside of. So for me, out of the three that I just showed you, essentially traits are the easiest way to do it. So whenever you're thinking about how you're going to which one you need to use, it's probably going to be very hard if you're a beginner. You're going to have to play around with it and see which one's the best ones for you to do. If you look at what we've just done, and you can use all three of these ways to do the exact same thing that we've just done. Interfaces would not be the choice that you would want to use if you need to declare your method again and again and again. If inheritance and abstraction is used, you will need to inherit 2 times, or if you have both methods in the same parent class. So traits will be the best choice for what we just did. In the same way, you'll get into a problem when you use in a different situation. So the more you learn about traits, interfaces, and abstract classes, the more you can kind of get the feel for which one you need to use. Personally, I like to use traits because they're easy to manage. I just need to use the use keyword whenever I want to use them, and it reduces me having to rewrite the code. So I'll create an entire file that has the traits in it for this. So instead of calling it class.person.php, I would do traits.person.php, and then I would include that file in this. And then every time I want to add something new to my class, instead of having to edit it here, as well as any of the child classes that it may have referencing it, I just modify my my traits, and then I only use those traits in the functions and the methods inside of the classes that I think that they're appropriate for. So for right now, I think we've probably been going on for 30-45 minutes. So I'm going to go ahead and stop this tutorial in object-oriented programming. But I think the next thing that we're going to go over is how to set constant value, constant variables, static variables, create namespaces, then eventually get into auto-loading. So all of this, like I've been telling you, we need to have it in a different function file instead of including everything in one file. Whenever you get ready to get to the auto-loading part of it, it'll actually do a lot of that work for you. If you ever use Composer, you're familiar with auto-loading, even if you've never actually figured out how it works. But Composer essentially takes an auto-load functionality and creates the file, or adds the files that you need to where you need them at. So we're going to kind of go over a very simplistic way to do that, the way that whenever I tell you to create multiple class files, you'll understand why. So we're not having to include everything inside of our functions.php, and this functions.php becomes a big mess of a whole bunch of includes, but the auto load will help us kind of sort through everything and put it where it needs to go. But again, I think that's going to be it for this video. Be on the lookout for another one next week, but for now, I thank you for watching. If you liked what you saw, if you have any questions, definitely like the video, subscribe to my channel, ask your questions below, give it a thumbs up. I do appreciate you guys being with me, and we'll talk to you later.